Hi everyone, just going to be starting here in just a few moments. The Facebook Live. Trying to do these things weekly, so this looks like Sunday's a good day. So hopefully you'll get something out of it. Just gonna wait a couple of moments just to see if anyone joins us. Otherwise, I have things I want to talk about, so just give it a couple of moments. And hopefully you'll be seeing this at some point if you're not seeing it when it's live. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today is a couple of things. So I want to talk about the idea of mediums and the different kinds that there are, as far as when it comes to, people's natural ability to do mediumship, versus those who maybe don't have as much natural experience with it. I feel as though that's one topic we're going to talk about, and then the other topic we're going to talk about is evil spirits, because someone once just asked in the last live, what is, have you ever experienced negative or bad spirits or evil spirits or something along those lines? And so I would like to talk about that. So first thing I want to talk about is mediums and mediumship in general. When it comes to mediums, I find that you kind of get one of two different types. You get those who are really, really natural at their sensitivity. They can feel things very, very strongly. It's something that they've kind of always had since birth. And then you have the other type who maybe didn't feel or experience anything, and then all of a sudden, one day, everything clicks on. I would be the latter of the two options. Whereas I know so many who are the ones who had experiences when they were kids, when they, seeing their grandmother's floating head, or, hearing voices, or having like imaginary friends who probably weren't so imaginary. So I think it's important to talk about both of these types, because regardless of whatever type that you are, you still need to develop. And you still need to sit for development, and ideally under the guidance of a medium who is very well developed. I think that's where we've sort of gone wrong in the quality of the mediumship that we have today. It's not that great in a lot of places. I would say most places, just because people don't spend enough time in development, in the development circle, working under the guidance of a medium, and they get too quick. They're like, oh, I can do a reading, so therefore I'm going to go out into the world and become a medium. And that's only going to diminish the quality of mediumship. We should be sitting for development in a circle. And those people who I know, who I consider to be some of the best mediums in the world, still sit in development circle. They still work at their blending, at their connecting with the other world, because they understand that it's not just about the fact that you can give a message. It's more than that. It's understanding your connection to the other world, understanding yourself, and continuing to build the power, to build your ability and your awareness of the other world. So that's definitely one of the things I want to talk about. The difference between, a natural medium, these are people who, had these natural abilities from a very, very young age. And the reason they need to be in development is because they have to learn how to turn this sort of thing on and off, how to best utilize it. Oftentimes these people are very, very sensitive to energies around them, sensitive to environments, other people's energy. And so it's so vital, especially for these people, to learn how to turn it on, turn it off, know appropriate boundaries, because that's often something that we see as well, is people not knowing how exactly to what's me and what's not me. So that's super important. So especially for those who we would consider natural mediums, absolutely need to be in development. to me, it doesn't matter that you can feel a spirit or you may be able to get some kind of message from it, but if you aren't getting it correctly, or it's negatively impacting you because you are too open, or you're too, you don't understand the boundaries and all of that, then I think that it's vital for those people to learn to harness this, because it's a great gift that you can eventually use to help others. And as we've spoken before, that's ultimately what you want. Mediumship should be there to help others. As far as those, like myself, I think it's important to really, say hello to all of those people who maybe don't know that they have mediumistic awareness or psychic awareness. And it's important for us to really recognize that just because maybe you didn't have all of these spectacular mediumistic awareness when you were younger doesn't mean that there's not something in there, something that's waiting to be unfolded. And the only way that's going to happen is through development, through sitting in the power, through developing in a group, through working with those who are already developed and letting them help you find your way with your own development. Because each of us have a power, spiritual power within us. And how that power expresses itself is going to be different for each person. And so it's so important for us to allow ourselves to give Spirit the opportunity to unfold whatever potential that we may have. And we may not have known about it until someone said, hey, you're a medium. You need to start developing, just like they did with me. And so I had no idea. I'd had dreams maybe that had come true, or I had, I could feel other people's feelings pretty easy. But I didn't know what I was capable of until someone said I could do it, because I think our belief in our own selves is a huge factor in everything that we do, mediumistically or spiritually, or just in general, really. And so I feel that once I was told you can do this, that realm of possibility opened up in my mind, and that's why I was able to try it, and then it worked. So I don't want anyone to ever feel discouraged that, I can't do it. All these other people, you have to be some sort of special person that's, magical or whatever. I don't necessarily think that's true. Everyone has some kind of gift. Let's discover what that gift is. So I just wanted to address those two things here, because I think that that's important, so that people don't feel limited, and also that they know how they can better develop if they're feeling overstimulated or they're too open and all of that. So I want to talk about that. And of course, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. If it's not during the live, then you can always ask them during at a later time, and I can try to answer in the next week's video. So the second thing that I wanted to discuss, which I think is super, super important, is the concept of evil spirits and scary things and entities and all of that. This might be controversial. My answer might be something that, people are going to argue with and all of that, and that's fine. Everyone's welcome to their opinion on this, but I'm going to give you mine, and if it rings and resonates with you, then take it on board. If not, just, chuck it. It's all good to me. As far as negative entities and evil spirits, I, for one, don't believe in them. In all of my years, I think, 13 years now of working with spirit or having interactions with the other world, never, not once, have I ever had any negative experience, bad experience. Never was I left feeling, exhausted or tired, or feeling as though the wind's picking up, feeling as though, there's something negative, or I brought something home with me, etc., etc. Never, not once. Some of my teachers, who, are some of the best mediums in the world, not because no reflection on me, more just on them, how much I respect them. Neither of them have ever experienced anything negative or bad from the other world. So I think that's something super important to talk about, because recently I've had an influx of people that have been coming to me that have these scary, fearful-based beliefs. And it's so important for us to realize that the other world actually only brings love. There's nothing from them that is anything else, really. Sure, they might have a feeling or an opinion, but it's never anything that comes from a place of malice or ill intent. As far as the reasoning behind that, it has to do with the power. This is a super important concept. So the power is your own spiritual energy, and then also there's the spiritual energy that comes from the other world. And as a medium, we have to be able to raise our vibration, raising it up through the sense of expansion, through the building of our own power, and then the other world has to lower their vibration and bring it down so that we can meet in the middle. One of the most expansive energies that there is love. I mean, I think we all can remember how that feels, those times in our lives when we've been in love or we've loved someone, and it's just this great sense of expansion. You feel like everything is the best thing in the world, and you're just in this very open space. Now think about how you feel when you're in fear, when something bad's about to happen. What's the very first thing that your body does? Just pulls it in, right? Just pulls everything in. And so that is exactly what your energy does as well. So it closes everything down. And so when that happens, it breaks the link between this world and the other. And so it's not possible for them to even interact with this sphere of existence because of that. So that is why whenever we work in spirit circles, whenever we work in any kind of development circle, harmony is key, love is key, and friendship amongst the people is key. Because without that, it's not the right vibration for them to be able to come forward. The other thing I always say to people is, well, you have guides and helpers as well. And so with these guides and helpers, if you were going to be attacked or attached or anything like that by some negative entity or spirit, then what the hell are our guides doing? Right? If they're not watching our back on the other side, then what are they doing there? Because we can't see them, obviously, or at least that's the concept that some people might portray. And then the other thing I would offer too is, and this one comes from Gordon, my teacher, Gordon Smith. He said, if there were negative entities and negative spirits, we would be screwed at every moment of every day. Right? So like in this moment, in another moment, spirit could get us at all times, right? That's obviously not the case. People aren't constantly, attached or attacked or possessed by any kind of negative entity or spirit. So if it can give you any kind of relief or peace in understanding that the spirit world is only beneficial, only positive, I think that would be helpful, especially because we can't come to the other world with fear. They function in the place of love, and what you'll find is that the more that you come from that place of love, the more love, or the easier it is to connect with the other world, which I think is a very important thing to mention. The last thing I wanted to mention about this topic is that one of my favorite mediums, Gladys Osborne Leonard, who I've spoken about many times, talks about this concept of evil spirits, and she herself did not believe in them. She didn't believe that they could have any power over us. And some people are gonna, say, oh, what about, negative people who did bad in the world? Do they just change miraculously when they get to the other side? No, they don't. They don't change miraculously. But they have a totally different perspective, given that they're now dead versus alive on the earth plane, needing to survive, right? One of the things that she mentions, that she says, if there is some sort of negative spirit or negative entity, that we actually have more power to help them than they do to help us, or to harm us, I should say. Because where they are in their level of awareness is a weakened place. They're in a place of despair, or they're in a place of, psychological figuring it all out. Because again, remember, the highest vibration is love. And if they function in their life with such negativity, they don't carry that same sort of power once they move out of the physical plane of existence. And so one of the things she mentioned, which I thought was fascinating, that she said, if they do exist, we ourselves have more power to help them through prayer, through sending them love, through sending them healing, to try to elevate their awareness beyond where they are right now. And I really like that concept and idea is because a couple of reasons. One, I think that it shows compassion for all people and all beings, and understanding that, people make mistakes, people do things that are terrible, and holding a little flicker of hope that people can change and that the soul can evolve beyond the negative things that maybe they did in this life. And I think the other reason why it's a really lovely, idea that I ascribe to is because when we understand that we actually are much more powerful than we seem in this life, it takes our power back from what we give away in fear, if that makes sense. So one of my biggest issues and challenges with, poorly developed people working out in the world is oftentimes two things. If someone is insecure in their mediumistic abilities or their psychic abilities, you'll find that they'll tend to put out a lot of information that is fear-based, or they're going to do something that seems dramatic. And it's because they're trying to play off the emotions of the person to make them believe. Those who I know who are fabulous and amazing at their mediumship or development, they never put anything forward that's going to cause fear, that's going to cause harm, because that doesn't come from the other world. If there is someone that's telling you that information is coming to them from the other world that is causing you fear and anxiety, and they just leave you that way, know that that's probably coming from the medium, not from the other world, because the other world is only going to bring through things that is going to be helpful, uplifting, try to help you in some way. So I just want to offer that. The other thing is also we when someone is bringing forward information like that, it's with the desire to make the individual giving that information be special or elevated in some way. And it takes the power away from the person to whom they're speaking about, if that makes sense. So when, a psychic says, oh, you have this curse upon you, it's probably because their next thing they're going to say is because, I can get rid of that curse for you. And that is taking away your power. Also, they're trying to fucking just take your money, excuse my language, but they are trying to take your money. And it's something that I get very passionate and irritated about, because people taking advantage of people and either bold-faced lying or actually genuinely believing these things to be true. But ultimately, it's not coming from spirit. It's not coming from the other world. It's coming out of fear. It's coming out of greed. It's coming out of manipulation. So I just really want you to be mindful when you're out there in the world and you go to, some little shop or something where someone's saying, oh, they're psychic, or oh, they're a medium, and they start giving you this stuff. Because I've known people have come to me, I've had students, I've had clients that have literally spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get rid of a curse, trying to get rid of some sort of something that some psychic or medium, quote unquote, said that they had on them, or something, negative that was attached to them, and spending hundreds of thousands. Like, to me, that is incredible. And I feel bad because part of that comes from lack of education of the sitters, and so that's kind of why I'm trying to say this to you all, so that you know that should you ever find yourself in a situation where a medium is either saying things that are causing you fear, anxiety, or anything like that, I just want you to not take it on board. You don't have to take, just because someone says they're getting information from the other world doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Okay? And whenever you do go for a sitting with someone, make them work for it. I mean, I'm not saying be cold and closed off or anything like that, but what I'm saying is that they should be able to provide for you information regarding that's accurate and specific, regarding past, if it's psychic, past, present, and then moving into future. If it's mediumistic, they should be able to give you information that is accurate about the individual that they're saying these messages are coming from. If they're just asking you questions, if they're just sort of, giving these sort of vague general statements, I would question, if that's maybe the medium for you, and see if there's, someone else. I also recommend always going through recommendations when looking for someone to do readings for you, because, other people have had positive experiences with them, etc., etc. So, in summary, I don't think there's anything negative or scary you ever have to worry about. I've never experienced it. My teachers have never experienced it. In fact, the only thing you realize and learn as you develop and you connect with the other world is that they bring forward love and they bring forward healing. And that's not meant to sound like some airy-fairy sort of concept, but rather just the reality. Anytime I've ever connected with the other world, I know it's happening correctly because I feel this great sense of love, peace, bliss. All that comes from the other world. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking about development, if you're thinking about, growing in your experience, or if even you're just going to get readings and things like that, really be aware of how you feel when you're either working with this stuff. If it's causing you fear, if you're learning things and it's fear-based, find a teacher or a mentor or medium who understands this and is going to help to alleviate that. Because if you're feeling fearful, if you're feeling scared, that's not the other world. So that's going to deal with ourselves. Last thing, actually, before I go, because I think this is important to mention, is the concept of, when we are experiencing something, it's a stimulus, okay? So whether that's, the light shining down on me, whether that's the wind blowing, whether that's, a sound that we hear, all of that is a stimulus. When we're working with the other world, we're going to feel all kinds of different sensations, experiences, etc., etc. This is where the confusion starts to happen. Because if someone in their own mind has not dealt with their own psychological issues, and I don't mean, severe ones, but I'm just referring to our fears, the things that we've accumulated throughout our lifetime. If they don't deal with that in some way, when we go to the other world, all this information has to pass through our mind. And if we have all of this big filter that it has to go through, it's changing our experience. So, perfect example of this is if someone were to see, this pen just start to, slide across the table and flow off the table, right? One person might say, oh my gosh, demons, they're out to get me, and here they are, and here's the poltergeist, and oh my god, I'm so afraid. Another person who has a different perspective, for example me, sees the pen go flying across the room, will think, well, first, is there a logical explanation for it? But then if there isn't, I'm going to be excited, actually. So my reaction to this is actually going to be really excited over the fact that I'm seeing this physical phenomena. Once we are in the place of fear, with the first person I was giving the example of, once we're in that place of fear, it sort of snowballs. Whenever we get scared, it's like, okay, now this part's scary, and then this part's scary, and then now everything is going through this filter of fear, and so that's what builds up this idea of these scary things that go bump in the night. And so what I'm saying is offering to you that when something does happen, whether it's a sensation or a feeling, the more you can stay out of fear when you're experiencing these kinds of things, the more likely you're going to see a very clear understanding of what you're actually experiencing versus, getting fearful or frightened or thinking something negative or bad is going to happen. So that is what I wanted to say about that. So now I'm going to just look and see if there's any questions. I was just sort of talking a whole bunch. Let me just see here. Okay. Hi Maria, hi Sonia. Hey Marcus. A little Marky if in Australia. That's great. And Megan, hi. Natalie, hi. Just want to say hi to you all, my lovelies. So I don't see any questions, but if there are any questions at all, feel free to ask. Just giving you a second to decide if you have anything. And then hello to anyone else who's watching who maybe I haven't said hello to. Hopefully you have found some of this information helpful, enlightening. Hopefully my real hope is that you aren't afraid and that you're feeling hopeful in your own development and your connection to the other world, because To me, that's the most important and exciting thing with all of this, is that it's an exploration, it's a discovery, it's an unfoldment of not only your own spirit, but also how your own spirit relates to everything that is. And I think that's the magic of sitting in the power, developing yourself, and yeah, so hopefully you guys got something helpful from that. Again, if there's any last questions, whether it's about mediumship, spiritual work, psychic stuff, astrology, I'll give you just another minute to think of one. If not, then my work here is done. So looks like, okay, here we go. We have one from Natalie. Let's just see. Hey Claire. Okay, would you say that some people have negative encounters with demons because of the fears they hold within their own mind and energy field? So this, I feel, really good question. So this, I feel, has more to do with the interpretation of what the experience is. So the last thing I talked about was the stimulus. People are attributing this to demons and saying, oh, this negative, scary thing is, a demon, because that's how they're choosing. That's the lens in which they are filtering through, if that makes sense. They're saying, okay, because I experienced this must be some dark entity. And then I think what happens is we feed that, and then we sort of get this confirmation bias sort of thing where, we're going to look for every single thing that's going to confirm our belief about this, because people like the dramatic, they like the scary, it gives them a thrill, right? And what you'll find too, especially in cases of like possession and things like that, you'll almost always find that it's a teenager, and you'll almost always find that it's in a very restrictive environment. So in a very sort of either dogmatic or restricted environment, and here's this teenager full of angst and all these feelings, finding a method in which they can actually express themselves. So what's the easy answer? Oh, it's not me, it's a demon. But in reality, it's them just actually expressing that inner angst and issue that they want to really get expressed. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't see it so much now, nowadays. And I think that it's important to kind of nip those sort of things in the bud as soon as possible, because there's more often than not a very mundane and practical explanation for all of these things. So basically, the short version to answer your question, I don't actually ever think they are interacting with any sort of negative entity that has consciousness, but their fears can make them believe that the stimuluses that they are experiencing are attributed to some sort of negative or demonic or something like that. But at the end of the day, that's not actually what's really happening. So that's my answer to that. All right, and then so this is sort of, I've never had a bad encounter, and I've always felt love and joy with spirit, but some of my family members do. So so that's what I'm saying, is it's based off of belief, it's based off of culture, it's based off of that kind of thing. So it's just them experiencing it because that's the construct in which they believe. So when we can, that's why I think it's so important for development, for understanding and taking away the construct of our belief and just experiencing what is. Okay, some people might start to feel a pressure here on their throat. One person's going to interpret that as, oh my God, a spirit is choking me. Someone else is going to experience that as, oh, okay, there is, they're working on my throat chakra or something like that. Does that make sense? So it's about our experience that we are interpreting. And so the more that you can just take away all of the fear labels to it, you can actually experience what is really there, what is really happening, versus, attributing it to something scary, bad, or something like that. Any other questions? Thank you for that. That was a great question. Also, hi to all the people that are watching. I appreciate you checking in and seeing. So I really appreciate that. Okay. Nope, wind's blowing. Everything's gonna fall over. All right. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, then I guess I will leave it there. I hope that you all can take some sort of sense of peace from this video, and my hope too is that it'll encourage you to explore and discover your own connection, your own spirit, because really mediumship is a journey of love, and at the end of it, it should be leading you to your own spirit, your own energy, and understanding you even more. It's more important than the message. It's more important than bringing, through information from loved ones. What's important is that you are understanding you and developing your own understanding and connection of yourself first, and then of others. Okay. So thank you very, very much for watching. Hi, Aaron. I know I got you in there at the very end, but this answers your question from last week. So the whole video is basically all about that. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to leave more questions and comments in the thing, and I'll answer it when I get back again. Oh, right. Okay. One last one, because Natalie's asking all these great questions. Do any mediums use Ouija boards as part of their development? Lovely question, and I want to address this one because especially we're going into Halloween and people are like, demons, Ouija boards, possessions. Actually, there are some very well-known mediums who did some amazing work that their first connection with the other world was through a spirit board, was through a Ouija board. So this is something that's important. The whole idea of like possession and things coming through Ouija boards literally stems from the Exorcist movie. So because of that, and because of Catholic Church and belief systems around demons and all that stuff, that's where all of that comes from. But the reality is that people have been using some form of communication, whether that's through table tipping, whether that's through pendulums or spirit boards, all of that sort of thing, to connect with the other world. And one example of this, I think his name is George Chapman. He was a famous trance healer. I think he was around like in the 70s, or I think actually he's around for a long time. And his first interaction with the spirit person, Dr. Lang, who ended up working with him and doing amazing trance healing, came through with just letters on a board and a little upside down shot glass, I believe. And they would do that, and eventually he started to go into trance with this person, who then eventually told him that he would be doing a great work of service for mankind, of healing, and he had fabulous results. I mean, he was also able to bring through this spirit person in trance. He would go into full trance, so he was unconscious, he would go into the trance, and then the other world, specifically Dr. Lang, would come through, work with him, heal patients. He did all kinds of eye things, all kinds of cancer treatments, all kinds of things, and had very, very positive results from working in this way with Dr. Lang. So accurate and so much of a deep trance that he was in that Dr. Lang's own daughter eventually came to, or no, maybe not daughter, it might have been granddaughter. I believe it was his granddaughter. Don't quote me, but we can Google it. Actually came and met with him and was able to have very personal conversations about things that only they would know. She, in the end, and as well as other members of her family, accepted that Dr. Lang was genuinely coming through this medium based on the information that he was able to give. So something to think about. It's not all scary demons and all of that sort of thing, because it's not even at all. There's been multiple mediums in the past who made their first connections with the other world and their spirit guides through a table, through Ouija boards, through all kinds of things. So, no, I don't think that there's anything to fear from that, and I think that can be a part of your development. But again, remember to let things unfold naturally, don't force it. And the other thing with Ouija boards and other things like that, it's easy for people to unintentionally move it subconsciously, so just be mindful of that when you're working with them. Really make sure that everyone is sort of keeping their automatic movements from influencing the table or the Ouija board. Let's see. Do you remember your first encounter? My first encounter with spirit? Is that the question, Claire? Let's just see. My first encounter with the other world, I mean, I feel like there may have been times that I was interacting with the spirit world and not maybe aware that that's what it was. I know that when I do, a reading for someone or a trance, work or anything like that, thank you, that is something that I kind of naturally did when I was younger as well, but I didn't know that was doing that. So I used to be a born-again Christian, and whenever I would, someone would come to me with one of their issues or something, I would feel my awareness start to move into this other thing, and then all of a sudden, all this information would just sort of start coming out. Looking back now, I do believe that was the influence of my guides that were helping this person with whatever it was that was coming forward. So I do think that maybe that was the beginnings of my, connection with the other world and spirit, just in a different lens, coming through a different lens. As far as my first experiences with spirit people, the very first time I did a reading was a quite good and clear connection with the spirit person. And then that's the beginning of my journey with that. And then also getting to know one of my guides who was able to give me his first name, last name, occupation, year he died, like everything about him, which was awesome. And then I was able to Google him later on. That was also a really good first experience. So I mean, all those, it's hard to really pinpoint what the first experience was, but they're all helpful because they all build together to make sense of all of that. An important thing to remember is to always try to be as logical as you can with your experiences, and not to let your mind kind of go. Just experience them as they are, and then just go from there. Try not to interpret or color the experiences. But yeah, I think that's all. Any other questions, feelings, comments? Okay, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I will probably be doing another one of these next Sunday, so around the same time. So if you're interested at all in that, please let me know. Yeah, we can kind of talk more about anything that you want to ask. So thank you so much for tuning in. Follow my Facebook if you aren't already. You can like it so you know when these things are happening. I also have my Instagram and my website to know about any classes and things. Hi Lorraine, it's good to see you there. Hope England's okay. And let's see, yeah, mediummichaelmayo.com. Instagram is mediummichaelmayo. Facebook.com/mediummichaelmayo. I try to make it as consistent as possible. So yeah, let me know if there's any other questions, comments, concerns, feelings, thoughts, opinions, anything, and we can pick it up again next week, right around the same time, so anywhere between noon and 2, but I'll always let you know ahead of time right before I go on. Okay, thank you so much for watching and giving me your time, and just sending all of you lots of love and blessings. So thank you. Bye.